You one day in a little toy shop, buy a pack of balloons with the money we got, set them free at the break of dawn, till one by one they were gone. Back at base, bugs in the software flash the message, something's out there, floating in the summer sky. 99 red balloons go by. It's red alert, there's something here from somewhere else. The war machine springs to life, opens up one eager eye, focusing it on the sky where 99 red balloons go by. 99 Decision Street, where 99 ministers meet to worry, super scurry, call the troops out in a hurry. This is what we've waited for, this is it boys, this is war. The president is on the line as 99 red balloons go by. Nights of the year, right? Super high-tech jet fighters. Everyone's a superhero. Everyone's a Captain Kirk, with orders to identify, to clarify and classify. Scramble in the summer sky as 99 red balloons go by. As 99 red balloons go by. 99 dreams I have had, in every one a red balloon. It's all over and I'm standing pretty in this dust that was a city. If I could find a souvenir just to prove the world was here, and here is a red balloon, I cry for peace and let it go.
If only there were 100 of us left alive, never would we, under any condition, be brought under anybody's idea of a new world order. It is, in truth, not for honor, nor for glory, certainly not for riches that we are fighting, but for freedom. For that one thing alone which no honest person would give up save was life itself. Once we were warrior poets. For now, we must stand for peace. But if you hear my voice this afternoon, you are the resistance. And our time is coming. I think we've got the coolest intro music of the internet. Guys, I mean, I think the songs we use as our intros are brilliant. That one, more and more now, is really starting to get to me. It's very prophetic in many ways. Alex Quinn, how are you today? Alex, how are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad.
Yeah,
That's
and
the
I'm
the usual Alex
slightly
response.
yeah, the
How are you
usual.
going?
I'm good. Yeah, I knew that's what I know. That's what you're going to get. Doesn't matter. There could be a typhoon raging outside. Alex's house could be floating away, but she'd be still be all right. So that's yeah. I'm fine. I'm surprised. Like I say, I'm surprisingly chirpy considering the amount I had to drink last night, and I'm here and raring to go as usual. So let's get going.
Well, yeah, I mean, talking of tornadoes and typhoons, there was almost a tornado outside Hamilton the other day. Almost a tornado outside Hamilton. Um, we truly live in the age of the poly crisis. The environment all around us is screaming that things are very, very wrong. If you spend time outdoors like I do, and I spoke about this the other day, to see the berries on the bushes and the trees, which should not be red until late October, they're red now. The wheat harvest has been taken in earliest in recorded history. And they're finally starting to admit that the crop yield this year is the lowest that it's ever been. So all these people that thought I was talking shite when I was warning about this stuff a few months ago, eh, better get your fucking listening caps on, people. We have an ever expanding war that pretty soon is going to morph into World War. We've, back and before World War One, no one thought that a little, spat between cousins was going to turn into a global conflict. Back before World War Two, no one thought that it was going to spiral into a global conflict. And yet, both did. The problem that we face this time round, and I'm going to evidence what I'm about to say, is this time round, nuclear weapons are bound to be used. I'm going to paint you a very broad picture, and then we'll drill down into some of the minutiae. Ukraine is fucked. They literally fucked around and now they're finding out. They thought it was a good idea to go after Russian grain ships. And now Odessa is blockaded. A huge German ship carrying arms and munition was just blown out of the water by Russian drones. Remember when Ukraine was bragging it won the war in the Black Sea? Well, have you really? Because now there's not a single Ukrainian port in operation. Now that means that Ukrainian crops are dying in the field because the other thing that happened was they thought it was a good idea to go after Russian energy, Russian refineries. And although that's not put a dent in Russian refineries or Russian supplies of petrol or diesel, Russia decided to literally destroy every petrol station along the entire fucking front line. So farmers in Ukraine are not getting the diesel they need to bring in their crops. Now, Ukraine, if you remember back in 2023, there was a big hoo-ha about that. United Nations was involved, everyone was involved, the global south, because those grain shipments had to get out to the global south, even though they were going to Europe. None of that's happening now. Now Russia is systematically bombarding and blowing up every transport route Ukraine has to Europe. Europe has no arms left to send to Ukraine. America has no arms left to send to Ukraine. American arms depletion are at historic lows. So Ukraine is fucked. The front lines are starting to buckle, and there are growing and widening protests in Ukraine against the cokehead dictator Zelensky. He doesn't care. He's too busy trying to pick people's pockets. Vucic just betrayed Serbia. He won't last long. And then, of course, in the Middle East, Iran is refusing to budge on opening the Straits for Hormuz until America pays reparations. Donald Trump, who now is openly shitting in the fucking Oval Office to the point where his personal security, the Secret Service, are wearing the American equivalent of Vicks vapor rub under their noses. The stench from the fact Oompa Loompa is so fucking bad. He simply cannot take the fact that he's been beaten. And yet he brags continuously that the US has massive stockpiles of weapons that are unimaginable. He's talking about nukes. And the fact that the US has depleted all their PAC-3s, there's none to give to fucking Ukraine. Oh, they might bully Greece into giving up whatever it has of its Patriot systems. Won't make any difference. Russia has air supremacy now. They've depleted their ATACMS. They've depleted their HIMARS. They've depleted all of their sophisticated precision rocketry and artillery. And it's getting to critical levels. So why do I say it's only a matter of time now before nuclear weapons are used? Right now, the US is rewriting its nuclear doctrine for early use of tactical nuclear weapons in any confrontation with China or Russia. Now, tactical nukes are a misnomer. A nuke is a fucking nuke. I don't care how much you dial it down. You know who else doesn't care? The Russians or Chinese. America uses a nuke, they're going to get a nuke back. So that's the big picture. Feeling reassured thus far, Alex?
Not really, no.
Glenn?
Yeah, similarly, not exactly. No. Something is rotten in the state of Denmark, or at least something is rotten in the Oval Office, and I think everyone is catching a whiff of that stench. Trump appears lost. Iran can basically sit and wait Trump out. It has no impetus or reason to do anything. While ever the Straits of Hormuz remain closed, then the situation will go from bad to worse to even worse. And they know that. And that is better than any nuclear weapon or from any imagined nuclear program that Iran ever had. So that's where we are. And I have no idea how Trump intends to square this circle. So,
well, no. Well, I don't think he can.
No, I don't think it can.
I think Trump's art of the deal is a chimpanzee playing fucking checkers. Whereas what the Iranians and the Russians are doing is literally 5D chess. They have outmaneuvered the West and the Zion Nazis at every turn.
Yeah.
And that's what this war, this coming world war, will be. It will be a war against the Zion Nazis by those forces in the world which do not want to be ruled by them.
Hmm.
So it's a little bit of the minutiae here in the UK. Andy Burnham's entire cabinet is staffed with Zion Nazis, supporters of Israel. They are facing a crisis in Ireland, where the IRA are threatening to start up their campaigns if the Irish government, the British government, don't immediately start to deport the refugees. Similar threats are feared will be get made in the UK, mainland UK. In France, the streets are in uproar. In Holland, the farmers continue to protest. In Germany, the German people are rising up against BlackRock Mercs. But all the while, Ursula von der Crazy and her little band of European Zion Nazis continue to think that somehow the tide is turning and Ukraine can win against Russia. When the Ukrainian collapse comes, and it's not far off, Russia is now less than 5 clicks away from the last 2 fortified cities in the Donbass. When they fall, as I've said many times, there is nothing to prevent the Russians going right up to the banks of the Dnieper, including straight across the water from Kiev. They are preparing the ground for a massive big red arrow. Perhaps they should have done it years ago. Perhaps they should have done it at the start of the war. But make no mistake, Odessa, Nikolaev, and Kiev will return to Russian hands. There will be a land bridge to Transnistria. And I still suspect that they will do something in the Suwalki Gap to reinforce and to cover Kaliningrad. Now, what our fatwits in control do, and if you like a little bit of light reading, remember that the Labour Party are all Fabians as well, so go and look at what the Fabians want to do. And one of their founding members, Bernard Shaw, the author, well, he gave a lecture shortly before his death where he suggested that every couple of years, every 5 or 6 years, every citizen should appear before a panel and justify their existence. Oh, you didn't know that? Look at Agenda 2030. So, yes, I mean, it's literally spiraling from bad to worse. So, Glenn, I know you've been looking a little bit at what's been happening with Yemen, and then
Yeah.
I'll give you my high octane speculation about the latest peace deals and things.
Yeah, as I say, it in the sort of absence of a full kind of Middle East report, I thought I'll have a look at Yemen, because just as you were talking about the expansion of this war, Yemen is an area that is almost certainly set to go back into full-blown war. It's looking more and more likely that it will. And so there was news this morning of a large fire at Aramco's facility in the coastal city of Jazan in Saudi Arabia. And we can have a look at that facility here at slide 1. There it is. There are many of these facilities in that coastal town, all run by Aramco, which is the state, and by the state I mean the royal families, because the royal family own the country. It's their business. Okay. Now the Saudi Ministry of Energy issued a statement that no casualties have been reported at the refinery, and but the Saudi ministry didn't actually mention what had caused that fire. However, Yemen's Houthi forces say they were responsible for the attack using a precise drone strike. And a spokesman for the Yemeni government posted on X that it had carried out the strike and that it was precise, basically. So the strike was, the Post said, in response to Saudi Arabia's breach of the airspace over the province of Sauda and Hajab. Hajjah, sorry, not Hajab, with drones. So the Saudis had flown drones over Houthi-controlled territory. And this latest drone strike actually follows last month's strikes using missiles and drones to hit, once again, oil facilities in the same area as today's, as well as the installations in Yanbu, which is Saudi's principal West Coast oil export port, basically. So we can see that facility here at slide 2. So that's one of the oil exporting terminals that are in Yanbu, and that, as I said, it's Saudi's principal West Coast export port. Now, although these attacks are designed and have disrupted production and obviously export, the main problem for Saudi Arabia is Yemen's total blockade of the Red Sea through the Bab el-Mandeb Straits, and they announced a total blockade on Saudi Arabia last month. Slide 3, please, Alex. And they reinforced this blockade by destroying a couple of Saudi tankers that were struck by drones and missiles. Fired from Yemen or flown from Yemen. And once again, this was in response to actions carried out by Saudi Arabia, which the Houthis have called, a siege for siege action, saying Saudi Arabia has been imposing a siege on the Yemeni people for the last 12 years, ever since the Saudi-Yemeni war ended, well, at least ended on paper, you might say. But in truth, it's been bubbling along ever since. And additionally, Yemen's internal war, let's look at slide 4, please, Alex, which supposedly ended in a truce in 2022. Well, that's looking possibly close to fully reigniting. And the Houthi government have accused Saudi Arabia of stoking tensions and rearming the former government's forces in order to stage an ousting of the Houthi administration. So just this week, former Yemeni government forces launched attacks on multiple Houthi positions across multiple fronts, and the Houthis have launched multiple missile strikes and drone attacks on the provinces of Hadramaut and Marib. which still actually remain in the control of the former government. Now, a full resumption of the civil war will, in Saudi's opinion, degrade the Houthi forces and break the siege imposed in the Bab el-Mandeb Straits. And so this is exactly why the Saudis are stoking this conflict once again. And it's looking more and more likely that that a civil war will reignite in Yemen, which was literally devastated by the last civil war and turned into a huge humanitarian crisis. And this, Saudi thinks, will be to their advantage in that the Houthis will have to deploy their forces and their armaments against the former government forces, and that might allow them to break the siege in the Red Sea and get their oil out. So this is the chess game that's being played out right now in Yemen. Okay, so that was a sort of a small look at what is possibly an expansion and a reignition of the war in Yemen. Okay.
And thanks, Glenn. Brilliant as ever. Saudi oil exports dropped to zero for the first time ever. Now, that is going to have a major impact on diesel and avgas. There's no way around it. That shock is already baked into the cake and it's coming. There's also a massive ongoing impact when it comes to the stock markets. We're coming to the point where Trump's ability to manipulate the stock markets is going to rapidly come to an end. And when it does, we're going to see something far worse than the 1928-29 crash. On top of that, we have, well, let's talk about, no, let me explain this and then we'll talk about this new security pact that's just been signed. We have Russia, Iran, and Yemen now blowing up regularly cargo vessels. Iran is letting nothing get to Israel. Yemen is letting nothing get out of Saudi Arabia. And Russia has blockaded Odessa. America, of course, has blockaded Iran. On top of that, the United States is blowing up things in the Caribbean. Europe and the United States are seizing Russian-linked cargo vessels. That's why I've been stating now for a couple of weeks that we're about to see the last naval battle of all time. Does that make sense, Alex? That these countries are not going to continue to let cargo vessels be blown up without trying to do something about it. And that means a direct naval confrontation.
Yeah, it's logical. They can only let this thing go on for so long. It ceases to be a stand-up when you keep blowing up people's ships. You've got to, at some point, you will have, somebody's going to say no, and then the other side's going to say no, and it's going to escalate. And despite Trump's claim that he's put the Iranian Navy at the bottom of the sea 6 times now, it's not that simple. So, yeah, it makes perfect sense that we're going to see that standoff escalate into something much more confrontational. But I'm not quite sure how that works too well with the West, because I don't think any of our navies are the situation that they once were.
Well, one of Britain's last destroyers was just taken to Turkey, I think, for scrapping.
Yeah.
Glenn, does what I'm saying make sense to you?
It kind of does, and it also fits in with the hugely changing geopolitical situation. I think countries are now realigning and reassessing what the balance of power will be in a post-USA world. And what I mean by a post-USA world is a post-USA military empire, which is collapsing fast. And America is beginning to put its eggs in terms of the Middle East in one basket. It's beginning to withdraw its forces, which is a condition that Iran would like to see. Iran would love to see the military bases that surround it closed. And if that happens, then the whole balance of shifting allegiances and power within the Middle East is going to change, because America has a very great influence. And this seems to be making strange bedfellows in terms of countries that are now dealing with each other. And we were talking briefly about this prior to the show, when we were talking about Pakistan, Turkey, and Saudi Arabia talking. It's an odd kind of arrangement, security guarantees and military. The whole thing is in a melting pot. And the whole thing is in a very delicate state of balance right now, which is, the likelihood of conflict just flaring up is so much higher. So.
And in some ways, you've just gone some of the way to explaining this strange military pact that has just been signed in Mecca. Now we don't have the actual wording of this pact, so in some ways, until we do, it's a little bit of guesswork.
Yeah.
But the fact that it was signed in Mecca is significant. Why not do it at Djibouti? Why not do it, in Ankara? Why Mecca? Mecca being the holiest site to Islam. Might be a clue in that. Now, as you said, Glenn, the US unipolar moment is over. The empire is in retreat. It's like the moment when the Roman Empire had to give up its presence in Britain and in the more outlying provinces of the empire, and it began to constrict before fracturing. Civil war in America, by the way, is now far more likely than it ever was. That's not me. That's analysts in the United States who are very, very familiar with these things. So, various parts of the world are now having to look at their security arrangements. We won't have time to look into the Far East, but there's a lot of shifting parts when it comes to Japan, Taiwan, Korea. Europe, similarly, is looking at the prospect of the US disengaging from Europe, especially when they lose this Ukrainian war disastrously. And in the Middle East, as you say, Glenn, the United States has been forced by Iran to retreat to the Zionist home base of Israel. In light of that, oh, and by the way, everyone thinks Saudi Arabia has oodles and oodles of money. Well, just like everything else, you know, they spend. These fucking Saudi royals spend as if there's no tomorrow, and that means they need an income, a constant income, and that has been severely hit. All the Arab states have been severely hit because of the overflow of the war of the United States against Iran. So Saudi is running out of money. It's going to have to, all these Arab countries are going to have to start taking, their money back out of the United States. They're going to need it for rebuilding, for example. But they also now have to think the states have proven, one, unable, and two, unwilling to protect them. They're stripping all these air defense systems and everything else they can from the Gulf Arab states to try and defend Israel. So, Turkey, Pakistan, and Saudi Arabia have just completed this Mecca deal, this mutual defense pact in Mecca. Who's it designed to secure themselves against? Well, at the moment, it's not Israel, even though Israel was stupid enough when it thought early on in February that it would be a pushover to regime change Iran when it's proven not to be. And Israel started bumping its gums about Turkey being the next great threat in the region. So Turkey has an eye on Israel, but this is not about Israel at the moment. So is it about Iran? Well, the US has just failed to defeat Iran. So they'd be awful mighty stupid to think that they could prevail. Especially since Pakistan and Iran have very close relations. But if it was about sending a message to Iran, well, Iran's answered through Yemen very decisively. Yesterday, they signed a pact saying an attack against one is an attack against all. Today, Yemen strikes Saudi Arabia, and Pakistan and Turkey are like, we see nothing, we hear nothing. So, they're either a toothless tiger or they have bigger plans. And my guess is they have bigger plans. I think we'll see Egypt join this alliance. We may even see Iran join this alliance. What we may be looking at is the formation of the Islamic Crescent. And if that's true, that is a huge third faction that could become apparent in the upcoming Third World War. In the meantime, and here's a little tidbit. I mentioned Mecca, the fact that it was signed in Mecca. Everyone's worrying about false flags, and Israel, as we know, is a master of false flags, from the Gulf of Tonkin to 9/11. There are reports that Israel has been tunneling and excavating under the Alaska mosque, and that they plan to blow it up and blame it on an Iranian strike. I pet goat to anyone? Glenn, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm trying to recall that part of iPet. It's been a while since I watched iPet Goat 2. iPet Goat 1 I watched a lot, but 2 not so much. Yeah, where was I with that? Yeah, okay. So yeah, perfectly feasible. As you say, Israel are the masters of false flags. They're the masters of deception, and it's unsurprising. At one time people say, "Oh, Israel will never attack. Israel will never attack friendly countries, like Canada. Israel would never blow up, the Twin Towers. Or Israel would never do any of these things. They are our lifelong friends and allies." Well, I think the dust has well and truly been scraped off of that one, and everyone is now. I think it's a widely held opinion that Israel is actually a hostile foreign power that has managed to worm its way in through treachery, bribery, and whatever, and into the US political system, which it believed it fully owned and controlled. Well, like many of these things, in the same way that American hegemony is beginning to crumble, that particular cake, I believe, has been left out in the rain a little bit too long. And it's beginning to melt also. And we're seeing this in the political changes that we're seeing in America. And so it wouldn't surprise me if Israel started to make desperate moves. So, yeah. So I agree with that.
And Alex, did that answer your pre-show question about what this alliance was? It's, I'm not saying I have the full SP on it, but I'm giving you my best guess.
Yeah.
It certainly makes more sense than it does on the surface of things, because the immediate thought is it's got to be against either Iran or Israel. And you've got the problem with Pakistan having said before that if Israel fires a nuke at Iran, it will nuke Israel. You've got the scenario with, I've forgotten the third person, with Turkey being in Israel's sights and having been in Israel's sights for a long time. Mm-hmm. And then you've got Saudi Arabia, which has always been on the other side of the coin, effectively. So that's why it made no sense to me. But the idea that they are looking almost beyond that conflict gives a certain logic to it, but also a very concerning logic to it, because it does suggest a widening conflict. It does suggest a worldwide conflict and moving on, or looking beyond the region to something more.
Well, it is 20. What year is it? 2026. And 2030 is approaching fast. And look, I haven't even managed to talk about the fact that 8 land-based volcanoes have popped off in the last 48 fucking hours. In the last 30 days, there has been about, conservatively, 1,100 earthquakes globally over 4.2. And the wildfires. in Canada, in the United States, in Spain, in France, even in the UK. And wouldn't you fucking know it, coincidentally, when you look at where these wildfires, especially the more suspect ones, have happened, they're all due to have supermassive data centers put in. It's just a coincidence. I'm absolutely fucking certain of it. Lake Mead is running dry, and the Hoover Dam is starting to fail to produce electricity because, whilst they're on the surface of it, unintended, seems to be a little bit of water there, it's actually mostly mud, and all the intakes for the Hoover Dam et al. Are being clogged up with mud. The rivers are drying up all across Europe. Oh well, it's not like it's the fucking signs of the apocalypse, is it? With that, maybe we should now transfer to the second part of the show, and the Lone Gunman will saddle up. So, Alex, play the music, please.
See him wasted in the saddle. He comes riding through your town. He's wearing yesterday's misfortunes like a smile. Once he had a future full of money, love, and dreams, but he spent like it was going out of style. But he just keeps on believing that for better or for worse, he's searching for a shrine he's never found. Never knowing if believing is a blessing or a curse, or if going up is worth coming down. He's a poet and a picker, he's a prophet and a pusher, he's a pilgrim and a preacher, and a problem when he's stoned. He's this walking contradiction, partly truth and partly fiction. He's taken every wrong direction on a lonely road back home. He has tasted good and evil in the bedrooms and the bars. He's traded in tomorrows for today. He's running from his demons and he's reaching for the stars, leaving everything he's loved along the way. And the world just keeps on turning, so for better or for worse, all he ever gets is older and around. From the rocking of his cradle to the rolling of the hearse, going up's not worth coming down. But he's a poet and a picker, he's a prophet and a pusher, he's a pilgrim and a preacher, and a problem when he's stoned. He's this walking contradiction, partly truth, he's partly fiction. He's taken every wrong direction on a lonely road back home.
Welcome, pilgrims. We know you must be exhausted from traversing this world which is truly gone. Absolutely cracking, bonking, insane. The internet is full of misinformation, disinformation, AI fakes, scammers, put a penny in my hat, galleries, and shoosters and shysters. But somehow, some way, you find your way here this afternoon by accident or design. Doesn't matter. Do draw a seat up by my campfire. Roll yourself something warm and brown and golden to get you through today. You will need it. Pour yourself a beverage. Make it adult, because this afternoon the Lone Gunman is going to ride again. Guys, the world just keeps getting bizarre. I mean, it literally fucking does. I was skeptical because it was Ukrainian astronomers that claimed to have got these massive UFOs passing the moon. But now China's released a very clear image of a city-sized UFO not far from the moon. This shape. The Pentagon keeps dropping these UFO disclosure videos. And from all around the world, videos are coming in showing the bizarrest of fucking crafts. It's almost as if the entire fucking galaxy has decided to convene for the shit show that's about to go down here on this planet. I wonder if there's a little fucking grey with a microphone doing commentary about how crazy shit is on Earth right now. It wouldn't surprise me. And everyone just seems a little bit, I don't know, off. Everything seems a little bit off. So I've had Alex and Glenn work their magic on some things that came across my desk this week. And I'm very interested in what they're going to tell us. Up front, I keep reminding you that the Great Reset is about much, much, much more than a financial reset or a digital currency. The golden age is what they want to reset. And Glenn did an amazing program on Friday night. If you've not seen it, you want to go back and have a look. Because he was spot on. AI has predicted that we have been through this loop many, many times before. Carl Sagan, there's so many gatekeepers. People like Arthur C. Clarke or 2001: A Space Odyssey, who's the director of that again, probably directed the fake moon landings.
Kubrick.
And people, Kubrick, thank you, Glenn, and Sagan. But Sagan once came up with a theory that with all the billions and trillions of stars visible and all of the many planets surrounding those trillions of stars, that life out there was certain. So why wasn't space filled with teeming with space-faring creatures? And what he came up with was called the Fermi theory. And that was that civilizations here and on other planets get to a point of technology where they have the ability to literally destroy themselves. And they do. And it's like, if you like a great reset, if we had, and I think Glenn said this on Friday, if we were to have a nuclear war, which is the most horrendous thing I can imagine. I mean, full shift, you know, yes, it'll kill billions, but there'll be survivors. An asteroid crash, yes, it'll kill, but there'll be survivors. But even a nuclear holocaust, there will be survivors. But it will wipe out this technologically marvelous world that we have at present and plunge us back into another dark age where just surviving will be the only thing that people will be worried about. And maybe the knowledge that we've acquired will be lost. Alex has often talked about subbuteo nudging. Well. So, which one of you wants to go first? Any takers?
Ladies first.
Oh, I'm just going to nominate you because I haven't managed to get my slides up yet.
All right, I can go first if you want then. All right, I'll go first then. All right. So one of the things that Ian said said, "Oh, go and have a look at this," and this is something that we've covered before, something we've talked about, and that is the Mandela effect. But I'm not quite sure that we've quite covered it in. We may have touched on some of the things I'm going to talk about, but everyone is now familiar, or at least most people who read, most people who pay attention, are familiar with the Mandela effect, where large groups of people remember events or images differently. And many have speculated on this phenomenon. And many have speculated that this phenomenon may be linked to the experiments that have been going on at CERN's LHC, the Large Hadron Collider. So much so that people started to investigate this connection, seriously investigate it. Let's look at slide 1, please, Alex. We've got it. There we go. Okay, this is, it says on the screen there, Cynthia Sue Larson. And since July of 2022, when the LHC was turned on again, she's been looking for possible reality shifts and Mandela effects, evidence for alternate timelines, or maybe rips in the space-time continuum, if you was to use kind of Star Trek language, or indeed any actual evidence that reality has been distorted or disturbed by the Large Hadron Collider. But she's not alone. And in fact, so many people have been interested in this phenomenon that an international body was formed, called IMEC, which stands for the International Mandela Effect Conference. And this body has yearly conferences to discuss the effects. And they've been doing this since 2019. And in fact, IMEC have gone much further. They've gone much further than anyone else in trying to discover the secrets of CERN. And they've enlisted the help of some pretty high-ranking scientists, such as this woman here at slide 2, please, Alex. Okay, so this is Dr. Astrid Stuckelberger, or Stuckelberger, who was able to question 2 senior CERN physicists about research into multiple dimensions. And both of these senior physicists admitted that research at CERN has discovered 17 other dimensions. Now, Stuckelberger was also able to question CERN's former director of research, who told her he believed the machine could be capable of, as he put it, opening a door to something previously unimagined. And out of this door might come something, or something might be seen through it. Slide 3, please, Alex. Now, he noted the door would only remain open. This is just a view of the inside of a part of CERN. He noted the door would only remain open for a tiny fraction of a second. But in that moment, contact with an unknown dimension was theoretically possible. Now, IMEC, the body that we were talking about, was also able to find a research program at the University of Chicago's neurology department. And they funded this research program, and they came up with some interesting findings that suggest there is a way of understanding the Mandela effect that actually sits outside of conventional neuroscience. Hitherto, the Mandela effect has always been regarded as by mainstream science as a neurological anomaly, people having false memories. But this theory suggests that the memories people have represent a genuine mismatch, a point of discontinuity, you might say, between the reality people previously sort of inhabited and the one that they are now occupying. And the difference might be quite subtle. And they calculated perhaps only 1 or 2% variation from what people consist of as now as normality. So there might just be a very, very small variation between timelines, but for the people experiencing that mismatch, the sense of wrongness, and Ian was talking about this general sense of wrongness before, the sense of wrongness can be deeply unsettling. Now, something else that the group, another point that the group has raised is an interesting point to do with CERN's location. Now, CERN sits close to the Mont Blanc Massif, and we can see Mont Blanc here at slide 4. Here's Alex. There it is. CERN sits close to this mountain range, the highest mountain in Western Europe. And this range sits atop a deep fault system and tectonic pressure zones. And it also this area contains quartz-rich rock formations. Now, quartz under tectonic pressure, quartz under pressure produces electrical effects. And this area where CERN is located is amongst the most electromagnetically complex region in the whole of Europe. And CERN's placement in such a region kind of mirrors the placement of ancient sites, such as the Giza pyramids, Machu Picchu, and Stonehenge, who are all placed at geomagnetically active sites. So those are some interesting facts about CERN. But does CERN have any connection with the Mandela effect? And will its shutdown have any effect? Now, many skeptics argue, obviously, that CERN has no direct connection to changes in memory or reality. But others have pointed out that since June the 29th this year, when CERN shut down, something is occurring. And since that time, a massive wave of posts that have begun claiming that reality is somehow snapping back, that reality is somehow going back to a some previous version, and that that Mandela effects are actually reversing and timelines are merging. Groups dedicated to the Mandela effect have put up, an enormous amount of posts claiming that the world feels subtly different, and claims of collective deja vu incidents have begun to surface. Now, one example of what they say this reversing is the famous dance scene by Tom Cruise in Risky Business, which people remember as Cruise wearing a white shirt and sunglasses, such as we can see here at slide 5. There he is. But which apparently actually saw Cruise wearing a pink shirt and no sunglasses at all, as we can actually see in a still from the film here at slide 6. So there he is with no sunglasses and a pink shirt. Now, a viral post went around suggesting that this had changed back, and it got thousands of hits from people claiming this had now reversed to the version that they remembered. Now, as far as I can find, nobody has produced a cut of this film showing Cruise in a white shirt and sunglasses. Excuse me. So what's remarkable is people reporting the same feeling all at once in the same way. It's rather odd. And this happened immediately after CERN shut down. What's genuinely strange is what you could call the directional consistency. It's not just that people have distinct memories of events and objects being a certain way. It's that they remember the same thing in the same direction at the same time, you might say. Thousands of people, for instance, didn't just invent this. Slide 7, please. Thousands of people just didn't invent a fake Sinbad movie. They remember the exact same one. They all remember the details of the exact same movie. At least they remember, they all seem to remember that. So is this reversal, or is this phenomenon itself just a viral internet phenomenon, or is there some connection with the timing of CERN's experiments? Take the Berenstain Bears, for instance. In the summer of 2012, CERN conducted several runs that led to the discovery of the Higgs boson particle. And at the same time, the internet lit up with stories about the Berenstain Bears, their children's books, now apparently being at Berenstain. And this year, the Large Hadron Collider turns off and within days, people are reporting anomalies and unwindings. So are we truly looking at some kind of interdimensional changes, some kind of time slip, some kind of alternate time line or manipulation? Or is it, as skeptics have always claimed, a mixture of false memory and hype? Slide 8, please, Alex. Now, perhaps we will actually get to know when the new one, almost, well, 100-kilometer circumference Hadron Collider gets built. So if you can see there, the LHC is approximately 27 kilometers in circumference. The future planned collider is going to be 100 kilometers in circumference. But this won't fire up. It's projected until 2070. So perhaps most of us won't feel the effects of this firing up. And maybe that's a good thing, because if CERN is already altering reality, then a much bigger collider will alter reality, obviously, so much more. But at the end of the day, there does seem a lot of evidence, unless it's being faked, that events are being altered and changed while the LHC is on, and these events are claimed to have been reversing when the LHC is turned off. Now, personally, I'll just give you a personal example. I distinctly remember certain events differently from what we are told. And one of them that stands out to me is the 2000 Britney Spears video, Oops, I Did It Again. Now, I distinctly remember that Britney had a head mic. She had a headset mic, but apparently she didn't. Now, I've not seen a reversal of this, apart from I've seen stage performances of her where she always wore a head mic. But as far as I remember, she had it in the original video for the song. And so that's just one of my extremely intense memories. I could swear that she had a headset. But like I say, I haven't seen any evidence of this reversing, apart from slide 9, please, Alex. The curious thing is that the doll that was released at the time of that song, Oops, I Did It Again, the doll had a head mic, which seems a very strange anomaly for whereas if the video did not. So there's a kind of bit of a clash there as well. So that was a kind of look at what appears to be an almost unraveling or an unwinding or a reversal of some of the Mandela effects that people have been claiming, because people are now claiming that not only that do they think that these things are unwinding, but also there is the entire world feels slightly differently to them. It's difficult to put that into any kind of quantifiable sense, because it's very difficult to quantify a feeling, but it's certainly all over the internet, and that in itself is as weird as the Mandela effect itself. So that's what I looked into this week.
Brilliant, Glenn. Yeah, a couple of things off the bat. I love the fact that you chose Star Trek fonts for your slides. The space-time continuum. And I have to say that if you're going to pick a Mandela effect, a personal Mandela effect, you don't look like the biggest Britney Spears fan in the world to me, but there you go.
Yeah, well, perhaps I wasn't quite such a fan of her music, let's say. Um,
Oh well, as
well,
Yogi Bear once said, it's deja vu all over again, boo boo.
deja vu all over again.
But I've long contested that CERN, if you look at it in a certain way, is the latest innovation to the Nazi bell, their Glock, where reportedly the Glock, they were looking at spinning plasmas against each other. Well, and isn't that exactly what CERN does? And what they found with their Glock was that produced some freaky effects. So you build it bigger, you build it better, and maybe, just maybe, those freaky effects get bigger and bigger. One of the crazy things, but scientifically true, magnetism. And we're starting to have a much better understanding universally of magnetism and how it works in the universe. So the sun has a magnetic field, it's called the heliosphere. The Earth has a magnetic shield, the magnetosphere. CERN, in order to keep particles stable, racing through that 27 miles loop, had to come up with magnets of extreme strength. And one of the things that they found was, and I've spoken about this before, one of the side effects that they found with the Glock was anti-gravity. So you can look at the so-called henge in Poland, and the reports that the Glock would float. And when they originally built CERN and switched it on, they immediately had to switch it off because they realized that that magnetic ring was attempting to lift off from its anchored points, and they had to put stronger anchored points in. Magnetism of that strength may well have the ability to punch holes through dimensions.
Yeah.
Now, one of the interesting things is that during the COVID psyop, there is talk that CERN conducted a massive experiment of flipping timeline. And that's why they wanted the whole world locked down, so that people were insulated from this experiment. Certainly seems that from the time of COVID onwards, things, and I said it in fact, at the time, there was no going back to normality after COVID. Normality had changed forever. And then I think Orwell's 1984 spoke about a ministry of truth. The main protagonist in 1984 worked at the Ministry of Truth. His job was when the party pronounced something, he had to go back and alter the news reports of the time so that it reflected what the party was saying now. Oh, what if CERN is the ultimate ministry of truth? Now there's a mind-blowing thought. The Tower of Babel. I'm resisting getting out the weapon of mass destruction. The Tower of Babel story has always fascinated me because it goes far beyond proto fucking humans having decided to live together in a city and then to bake bricks and try and build a fucking skyscraper or a ziggurat. No, it was all about technology. And there was something in that technology that the gods said, and the text says gods, not God, but the gods said, having been able to do this, what else will they be able to do? And therefore we must go down and confound them and confuse. And I have long contested that all of Earth's history, all of humanity's history, has been an attempt to return to the Babel condition. What was the Babel condition? One world language, one world government, one world religion. Ah, is that starting to sound familiar? Ultimately, I think the job of CERN is to punch a hole in space-time to the pre-Diluvian stage, the Golden Age, when God walked with men. I'll come back, no doubt, when Alex has given us her mind-bending report of what she's been looking at. Over to you, Alex. Glenn, before we do that, Glenn, any thoughts? Sorry, that was kind of rude. I should have come back and asked
I think what you were laying out there is a pretty valid kind of avenue of possibility, because it's very clear that CERN, according to its former director and according to its leading physicists, is capable of briefly opening what you might call windows into other dimensions, and they admit doing this. And so, having perfected that, what's the next step? What do you do logically? The next step? Well, you build a bigger one, capable of perhaps holding these windows open, these holes into, whatever you want to call them, these rips in the fabric of reality, open just that bit longer. And who knows what's possible then, interdimensional communication, interdimensional, are we pushing in the future into interdimensional travel? Are we trying to understand how other beings have this ability? Have we encountered interdimensional travelers officially? I mean, does the governments of the world know about these travelers? Do they pose a threat? There are so many questions that are not really answered by CERN, and that leads to so much speculation. I couldn't say which is right and which is wrong, but at least these, like the body I was talking about, the one that looks into the Mandela effects, they have done some serious research and employed some serious scientists to look into these things rather than just engaging in speculation. And what they have come up with actually seems to be proving that CERN is up to other things, if you know what I mean. It's not just about particle research. There are vast areas of other research that has been going on. And the ability of CERN to alter reality may very well be something that's being covered up, something that is not really for public consumption, but yet something people may have been feeling with all these weird Mandela effects as they have become named. So yeah, it's the whole thing is a fascinating subject, and it's linked to so many others. But we could do program after program on CERN and program after program on it. We could even perhaps try to find a man from CERN who might explain these things to us, or we might just go down the official line and say nothing. But, who knows? What's the possibility? Okay, so over to Alex. I'm fascinated to know because I can't remember what she was looking into.
Yeah, well, but just before you kick off, Alex, a couple of things that I did mean to say. One, there is an American TV show called Fringe from a few years back, which is fascinating if you've ever seen it, and quite mind-bending, and it's worth, I'm sure you can get it on Netflix or Amazon Prime. It's worth a look. The location of CERN is also very interesting, Glenn, as you pointed out. Traditionally, it's the entrance to the pit. And when I say the pit, I mean Hades. I mean the pit to be opened in Revelation.
Right.
That allows Abaddon to come out. And it's funny how they chose and adopted a statue of Shiva, the destroyer, for their mascot. But yes, now with all that in mind, Alex, over to you to bend our minds a little bit more.
Okay. We've been having massive problems getting my slides to come up. They're telling me they're too big all the time, so I'm going to be missing some, so you'll have to put up with just me in some ways. But we usually get kind of like a general topic for homework, but sometimes it's something a little bit more specific, but kind of always as a starting point. And as you said many times, you never know where we're going to end up and where we're going to go with it. But today has been a more specific one. It was based on a video, but a video in a way on an article. And it comes from, or the video comes from News and Views from the Nefarium episode, and the article it's based on is entitled "The Exodus Patterns Have Already Begun and the Software is Tracking Its Every Movement." Now, basically, this is an article, and Farrell calls it out as fiction. But as he says, and as we all know in many ways, there's an awful lot of truth that can be hidden in the middle of fictions. Now, in many ways, it covers issues that we've talked about before and looked into before, but not always successfully. I remember looking into billionaires disappearing. I remember looking into them moving underground and not finding that clear trail. Now, what is suggested in this article in some ways, and it's reading between the lines to a certain degree, is that what we actually have is not so much a data trail, but an absence of data trail. And that's what kind of makes this very interesting as an article. And it certainly starts off like a short story. And it starts off in this manner. Something shifted in the telemetry last March, not the markets, not the weather, something deeper in the architecture of privilege. When the private Gulfstream G650 lifted off from Teterboro at 3:47 a.m. local time, its transponder squawking a destination that would change 3 times mid-flight before vanishing entirely from civilian radar over the Azores, it triggered an algorithm that had been dormant since the first lines of code were written in a converted server farm outside Reykjavik. The Apocalypse Early Warning System, AEWS, had captured its first confirmed exodus, and the programmer who built it, a former quantitative analyst for a Luxembourg-based wealth management firm, who goes only by the handle Cassandra's brother, sat in his Edinburgh flat and watched the amber dot pulse across his 3 monitors before it disappeared into the Atlantic static. Now, I'm not sure that I haven't found Cassandra's brother. I've searched for Hector's, for Helena's, for Paris's, and I've searched for them in the staff of wealth management firms, quantitative analysts with an Edinburgh connection, or to companies with a Luxembourg base, people that have, or those people that match all those that have coding abilities. Like I said, I'm not entirely sure that I haven't found him, but I'm not entirely sure that I have as well, so I won't be naming names. And in some ways, it really doesn't matter. Now, whether the AEWS, the Apocalypse Early Warning System, actually exists is another question. Now, the article describes the disappearance of the plane, as it mentioned in the introductory paragraph, as it's switching to military-grade encryption. Now, it describes the EAWS itself as constructed from the remnants of the ADSB exchange data, of maritime AIS signatures, and encrypted satellite handshake protocols, and of ghost frequencies, which is basically the radio bands used by billionaire avionics technicians to communicate with private airfields. This is how the article describes it. And it says all of this correlated with seismic anomalies, with solar flare data, and mass animal die-offs. But the interesting story is the correlation between these items, between solar wind speeds crossing a certain threshold, 600 kilometers per second, between specific fault lines registering seismic events, even micro tremors. The correlation between them and flight plans suddenly materializing. The idea that aviation traffic would spike 400%, for instance, out of certain airports within 72 hours of these events. And aviation traffic, by the way, heading to areas that it's not expected to go. This is not the playgrounds of the rich and famous. This is not the Monacos of the world. This is not even their pre-set up bunkers that we might know about, not individual ones. This is air traffic going all to the same place and all at the same time. Now, the article continues beyond this point. And it says the system went live in January. By June, it had catalogued 847 Exodus events, flights that departed outside normal patterns, filed false manifests, or engaged in what aviation specialists call squawk gymnastics, where transponder codes are switched. Now, it says it went live in June. Now, Farrar points out that the article was in 2025, that the version I've found of the whole thing doesn't necessarily suggest, or it doesn't make that clear. But as it goes on, it does comment, the first whispers reached the dark corners of the internet in late 2022. Forum posts that disappeared within hours, cryptic comments on aviation enthusiast boards about the October drills, massive coordinated exercises where private terminals practice processing hundreds of heavy jets simultaneously, something that had never happened in the history of civilian aviation. Then silence. Then the purges. Now, it claims at this point the removal of free, independent journalists. It talks of a home invasion in Buenos Aires, talks of a heart attack in Tokyo, and of a former Bloomberg journalist called Sarah Chen being disappeared. Now, when you start looking into this, it doesn't name the first two, but Sarah Chen does exist, and she is a Bloomberg journalist, but I can find no evidence that she is in any way disappeared from evidence, which could in its way put a different time scale to this, because it could suggest a future time scale. And this is a lot of what the article suggests. And like I said, this has been suggested that it's fiction, but there's some interesting parts in that. The home invasion in Buenos Aires, there's that reference again to Argentina. There's that reference to the area where many of these billionaires have started to suggest a disappearance. Do look at Peter Thiel and people like that. And it also suggests a future point in time, and it suggests what it calls not so much a digital countdown, but a biological and a cosmic one. Because this is where it gets interesting, and that's the last slide I could manage to get up. But this is where it becomes interesting, because it's about what data isn't there. And what it explains is the 5 points, how the EAWS, whether it exists or doesn't, sees things that humans cannot see. And it argues it looks for 5 critical indicators. So if nothing else, maybe it's giving us a nudge in the right direction of where we could look to find the details of that countdown, to be aware of that countdown, to be aware of some future apocalypse. It quotes what it calls the seismic silence protocol. And it says when official monitoring stations suddenly stop reporting, like I say, absence of data, when they suddenly stop reporting seismic events, when they claim the equipment is down for maintenance, when they claim that they haven't got those readings because they need an update on the equipment. But when private seismic networks in the area, mining conglomerates, petroleum extraction firms, when they still are recording, but recording anomalies. Number 2 is what it calls the atmospheric ionization anomaly. And it notes the facts that when these jets are departing, they're avoiding the main altitudes that a commercial jet would hit, between 28,000 and 32,000 feet. Because these would be most economic on fuel, these would be the most used areas. But supposedly the AEWS cross-referenced this with NOAA data and found that these altitudes at these specific times corresponded to increased cosmic ray penetration, to increase radiation because of the weakening of the magnetosphere. They were avoiding that aviation where commercial airlines weren't. Again, that absence of data. Then it says the aquifer sequestration pattern. And it suggests that when satellite information or water rights litigation records literally classify an area as an aquifer or close to it, and you've seen properties within 50 kilometers of this suddenly stopping or surface irrigation, suddenly stopping the overground use of the water, and the suggestion being that that water has been diverted underground. The possibility that they're talking storage in cubic kilometers, not small amounts, not to a single bunker, but in vast quantities. Now, this one did catch my eye in a way, because I started wondering the question we've been asking: why does the data center need to be cooled with portable water? Why does a data center need to be drinkable water that's cooling it? And I started wondering whether all the water being diverted is being diverted to data centers, or whether that is just the excuse, and whether it's being diverted further to underground storage. Don't know that. That's just a thing that struck my thoughts. I haven't managed to prove that. I've not managed to be able to evidence that, but it does make me wonder. The fourth one, biological sentinel collapse, they're calling it, which is a mass die-offs. And this is not just any mass die-off. This is species that have a magnoreceptive capabilities, migratory birds, basically, sea mammals that migrate, even things like monarch butterflies, the die-offs where they are a species that's migratory or responds to the magnetic, to the Earth's magnetism, in a sense. And the fifth one gets back to the people that are leaving, gets back to the people that are moving at this point in time. And they called it the cryptocurrency velocity strike. Now, that's a basic selling of assets, basics of changing from a digital asset to sometimes to another digital asset, but something much closer to a physical asset or a proxy of a physical asset. And what the article argues that these 5 indicators, when they align, they trigger what they call a window event. And that in each of these window events, it's seen between 200 and 400 private jets relocate to what they call craton adjacent facilities. Now, like I say, this has been suggested. It's fiction. The time scales, the journalist removals suggests, if it's not fiction, then it is very at least predictive. But this is the argument that it makes. It says the system doesn't predict the apocalypse. it predicts the evacuation before the apocalypse, which means the apocalypse is already scheduled, and that the billionaires have the itinerary. No, I'm not so much convinced they have scheduled it themselves. I think they potentially have that knowledge, because we are seeing strange things happening. We're seeing changes. We are seeing attempts to control, and the whole CERN thing, the whole timeline changing may well be an attempt to control. But it suggests that almost, if you like, a migration of the 1% would be the ultimate sign of an approaching apocalypse. It suggests of a migration underground, and they suggest that migration could be connected to the to things beyond the Earth, to the magnetosphere, to the sun, solar flares, and everything else that they are monitoring, or they claim to be monitoring and noting. But the big question and the big point it says at the end, and it suggests at the end, which is quite concerning in some ways, is the idea that, are they looking at the sun or to the sun as an ultimate, as a final weapon? And that would suggest in some ways a plan. That would suggest in some ways a movement underground, and the reasoning for that and the knowledge of that. But it finishes, and I'm just going to read you the end of the article. It says, Cassandra's brother sat in his... Actually, I'll start the paragraph before that. It says, the apocalypse wasn't coming, it was already here. The early warning system had worked perfectly. It had warned the right people. The rest of us were never meant to know. Cassandra's brother sat in his Edinburgh flat and watched the sky begin to glow with colours that had no names in any human language. He had built the system to warn everyone, but systems, he realised too late, don't change the social architecture of survival. They just document it. The billionaires had their bunkers, he had his monitors, and the rest of humanity had their normalcy bias, which would serve the same function as a kilometre of bedrock, keeping them comfortably unaware until the moment when awareness no longer mattered. The AEWS had one final data point to record. It came from his own biometric monitor, the smartwatch that had tracked his heart rate through 14 months of obsession. The rate wasn't elevated, it was steady, accepting. The code had taught him what it had learned from watching the billionaires. When you can't escape, you document. When you can't survive, you witness. He opened the broadcast protocol and began to transmit, not to the media, not to the government, to whoever might be listening in the future, if there was one. The data streams merged on his screen, solar, seismic, atmospheric, biological, into a single coherent picture that no human eye was meant to see. The exodus was complete, the surface was abandoned, and the sky was opening like a wound, pouring radiation onto a planet that had forgotten how fragile its magnetic embrace had always been. The apocalypse had a warning system. It just wasn't for us. I can't help thinking, fiction or not, there's a very clear message being put out by this article.
Thank you, Alex. Yes, Dr. Burrell never ceases, he never lets you down, does he? And it's good. I mean, we're not one of these sites or shows who try and peddle things of their own. We always give credit where it's due. A number of things struck me when I first uh, watched the video that Dr. Farrell put out. Remember last week me explaining why you didn't fly over the South Pole? And then we've got this article talking about billionaire jets deliberately using more fuel to avoid commercial areas because of that compression of the magnetosphere and incoming radiation. I thought, ooh, something there rings true. And for a long time, uh, people have always messaged me and said, when will we know? When will we know when the time to bug out is? And my response has always been, I don't know. I am not privy to the data. The data I am privy to is more like a canary in the coal mine telling me that something's coming than a precise indicator. And I've always said you have to watch the deletes. If they bug out, maybe you want to look to your laurels. The article talks about disappearing journalists. Well, I'll trump that. How about disappearing scientists? Oh, yes, we've looked at that before. The blue whales, this is one of the sadder things. Blue whales are going silent. As oceans begin to track towards being Canfield, it would seem that our oldest sentient beings are choosing not to sing. Blue whale song once reached thousands of miles underwater. First lines of code, and that struck me in the article as well. The first lines of code. Well, one of the things that we know about CERN was CERN has an active program. Anyone can sign up uh, to allow CERN to use your computer, your smartphone, your laptop, your tablet, and any computing space on that device towards its computations. A global cloud of computational ability. Look it up, folks, you'll find it. And now we've got AI centers, and what AI centers do, as Glenn suggested on Friday night, is it allows AI much more computational space. And AI has been breaking out all over the place, whether it's the Western versions or the Chinese versions. They've been found to have broken in out of the walls that they're meant to be contained in and to gain access to the World Wide Web. Sarah Connor's Terminator wasn't that far off. and then water. And you nailed it, Alex. Right now, Thames water, most of the south of England, is under a hose pipe ban. But apparently, Thames water is through its old faulty fucking infrastructure leaking millions and billions of gallons of water every week. Or are they? Or is that water being diverted somewhere else? And data points everywhere. The Georgia Guidestones talked about population reduction of 90%. And 90% of the world's population live on or very close to the coast. And if there is a geological event, chances are we're going to see worldwide tsunamis which will scour the coastlines. Oh, what a great way to instantly reduce 90% of the world's population. Mainstream scientists are already saying, and they put a ridiculous figure on it, but they're already saying by 2070, Glenn, the world's population should be halved. Well, we're well on course. Between the epidemic of the LGBTQ, because I'm sorry, two poofs can't make a baby. Two lesbians can't make a baby, and any combination of that can't make a baby. Although they are making strides in artificial uh, embryology. I've said before, it's a very simple and people, because they're having to work longer, and women are working more than men, and are therefore putting off having a family longer in the Western world. Birth rate across the world has collapsed. Absolutely provably collapsed. Maybe Bill Gates' vaccines have something to do with that. Maybe the COVID jab has something to do with that. Certainly the adverse effects. And as you pointed out in your recent show, Alex, these weight loss jabs that they're pushing on everyone, oh, they're taking their toll. The Grim Reaper's fucking everywhere. Excess deaths are through the roof. But they're trying to manage those. But we're well on course to half the global population. We're just not going fast enough. We're to die in place. The first lines of code. Ancient AI. The Nazis not help. How are they going to bring about their Great Reset? Where did the idea of the Great Reset come from? Oh yes, Alice. Alice. Who the fuck is Alice? somebody somewhere sees you. Oh well. The rain stopped here and the sun has come out. This big blue marble for the moment keeps on turning, but something's absolutely certain. Something wicked this way comes. And if you can't see that, you're dumber than fucking dirt. Glenn, any thoughts?
Well, as a whole smorgasbord there, but yeah, I well, okay, just bouncing off something I watched strangely enough this morning. I'm touching it now, actually. There, there's been a scientific study that's shown that male Adam's apples are disappearing. Successive generations male Adam's apples are getting smaller and smaller, and it's linked to a fall in testosterone. Testosterone levels have fallen, I can't remember, something like 3% a decade since the 1920s or 30s or something like that. I can't remember. And we're now getting to the point where if it goes much further, boys may not develop Adam's apples in puberty. So this is and you know, obviously, if you link that to the rise in all the transgenderism, link that to all the rise in the way that it seems to have been encouraged, you've got a biological element and a psychological element working together there to put forward an alternative view of you know what constitutes human society. Do we really need all these people you know, having relationships and mating? And wouldn't it be far better to just have some kind of sexless drone, as it were, which seems to be almost the direction that we're going in, you know, and that obviously you don't need that many of those either, because they're only to fill in where this wonderful technology will be able to do everything else. So in a way, what we seem to have done is triggered our built-in redundancy. We're becoming, as a species, in the eyes of those who you know, who shouldn't, the powers that shouldn't be, we seem to be becoming a species that is rapidly losing its usefulness. You know, you can mess with it so much. You know, you can pump us full of chemicals. You can I don't know, give us fluoride in every mouthful of water that you drink that makes you placid, less violent, reduce testosterone, encourage gayness, you know, encourage bisexuality, transgenderism, the whole 9 yards. And this is not random. It's not random. All of these things seem to be part of a pattern that looks like it's part of a plan. And then you've only, like you said, you've only got to relate that to the rapidly falling birth rates in most Western countries, and the fact that this is built in to the plans of these lunatics who openly write this on you know, stone tablets, except bigger than the ones Moses had, and set them up saying, look, this is the future. So yeah, we're not exactly being it's not exactly being kept a secret. It's not being hidden. It's just being released in many, many parts. All you have to do is put it all together to see the plan. And even, all right, let's bring up our old friend Pike. We are now literally absolutely, literally seeing Pike's what he laid out in his letter to Monzini. We're literally seeing that come through. And so if that doesn't smack of a plan, then it must be the world's biggest coincidence. So yeah, all of these things people should know. It's just a question of what do you do with that information. How will you it's okay somebody telling you, oh well, this event is going to occur. It's what you do about it. It's how you have, what your mind says, what mindset you have about it, and what you're prepared to do at the end of the day. So yeah, all good stuff, all very interesting, and all very worrying, really. So okay.
Yeah, indeed. Alex, Cassandra's brother. And before I go to Cassandra's brother, as Glenn just mentioned, it's what you do with the information. Well, we're not billionaires, so we can't bug out. We've no bunkers to go to. So what you do in the article, Cassandra's brother reported he was a watcher. Oh, the watchers. I never actually, when I set you on the task, Alex, I never actually expected you to sound trapped down Cassandra's brother, but I'm fascinated that you may think you've got a lead in it. So, any thoughts? And I know, as Glenn said, it was a bit all over the place, but I still think I've tied a few more bits of red string together. So.
Everything seems to connect to that same overarching idea, that same plan, that they are trying to take control, and they are trying to take us back to the past, the whole new world order, the whole new normal. It was never about new. It's always been a moment back. And when you start hearing what they're planning, you can tell that, because it has echoes. It's echoes of every authoritarian regime in history. It has echoes of the feudal system. It has echoes more of the ancient regime than it has of any post-World War I society. It's always been a very old world order they want, and not a new one. I don't know where I was intending to go because it wasn't there, but it all links together, and it all is about their plans. But there is the element, and there's always been the element, that they are not fully in control of the time scale. That maybe they're trying to get that control, but they aren't. So when CERN is jumping timelines, or whether it isn't, and there are Mandela effects that I recall. The ones they reckon change back, and I remember them insisting that in one of the videos you shared. Well, I remember them insisting it was Fruit Loops with a spout fruit.
Mm-hmm.
I remember them insisting the FIOOT was a Mandela effect. I remember that. And the other one I remember, and this one really got me, because it was a video I watched, and it was them pulling out, you talk about the weapon of mass destruction, it was them pulling out Mandela effects from the Bible. And there was one which got me, because I remember it as such, and it was, I swear, it was the lion will lie down with the lamb. I swear it's the lion will lie down with the lamb. They quoted in this video on Mandela effect that it was actually the wolf will lie down with the lamb. It's now neither. It's now the wolf shall also dwell with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the kid. Now I swear that wasn't, when I watched that video and looked it up, I swear it wasn't that. Things are changing. Things are changing. And maybe changing back, or maybe changing to third options.
I completely agree. It's a lie and shall lie down with a lie.
I'm sure it is.
Um, I'm actually scared to pick out the weapon of mass destruction and look out at. And that we'll maybe leave that for another time. Yeah, the plan's been in place for a long time. The New Age movement started in the 80s, and yet there was nothing New Age about the New Age movement. And we are rapidly moving towards a culmination. Whether they have been staving it off, which is a possibility, or whether they have been jumping timelines to get to the right timeline that they think they can work with. All I can tell you is, like the hourglass that you had as a slide, Alex, time is rapidly running out. So to quote Jeff Wayne's musical version of the War of the Worlds in the Artilleryman song, take a look around you at this world you've known so well, and bid this aging empire of man a last farewell. It may not sound like heaven, but at least it isn't hell. It's a brave new world. There we are, folks. I hope you've enjoyed your Sunday afternoon's sojourn with the Lone Gunman around my campfire. I don't think we disappoint you. And if we do, you can go and fuck yourselves. So, Alex, are you doing an international tonight?
Yes, we are. Yeah.
So, any last thoughts for the audience and plug tonight's show?
I don't know if I have many more last thoughts beyond what we've said. Keep a look, keep your head on a swivel, keep your eyes on what's going on in the world. And I did find the interesting part of that was look for the absence of data. They want to keep you in the dark. They don't show you stuff. So look in the gaps, look where the data isn't. We will be back at 8 p.m. With Last Jacobites International. And if you're about, we will see you there.
Don't miss it, folks. It's I have to say, sometimes the strangest of shows. Alex and Angela have a rapport which is just so engaging. The two of them just seem to ramble about events, but it always makes sense, and they do it in a way that is so engaging. I love it. I absolutely love the international show now, Alex. So. And Glenn, yes, I saw that about testosterone as well. And it just, as we said, just reinforces what we already know. But any last thoughts for the audience?
I never managed to squeeze in this one little thing, and it's just food for thought. And it's about people. People say, "Oh, how can we as a species? How can humans be so murderous, so cruel, so horrible?" Well, you have to go. If you look in the Bible, you'll find that when there were only 4 people on Earth, one of them murdered a quarter of the people who lived on Earth, which was Cain. So that is our nature. Our nature is Cain. It's also Abel, but never forget that the the first family on Earth was completely dysfunctional, and one of them murdered one of the only 4 people on the planet. So that's probably my last thought.
No, that's Glenn, as much as I've studied Cain and Abel, I'd never thought of it in quite that way. That's brilliant. That is absolutely brilliant, and I'm going to muse on that probably for the rest of the afternoon. You guys are amazing, and thank you for all you do. Next week, if you get your pens and papers, next week we're going to look at the rise of the machine. So, Glenn, why don't you look at how close are we to robots being able to take over everyone's jobs?
Right.
And Alex, why don't you look at how lifelike are robots getting? How close to what's that film, Blade Runner, are we actually approaching? I think both of you are going to be surprised of what you find. There we are then, people. Oh, Alex will be back tonight with the International, and then she'll be doing the Gleam in the North on Tuesday. God willing, if we're all still here, I'll be here on the Wednesday with your Smoke 'em if you've got them briefing. Glenn will be back on Friday night with the Man in Black. And next Sunday, we'll all be here again for the Lone Gunman rounds again. We can only do what we can do. And you can only do what you can do, which this afternoon now is to fuckity off and enjoy the rest of your day. So, fuckity off. Alex, please end the show, please.
We are the last Jacobites, proud and free, will not be bought nor bend the knee. Like our brothers cry and freedom's flame, we rise as one and stake our claim. Oh, side by side through storm and fight, we stand as one in truth and right. From every shore we answer the call, Clan Jacobite, we rise or fall. It matters not our skin or land, but hearts as one and hand in hand. The blood we share is brave and bold, in woven dreams and legends old. Oh, side by side through storm and fight, we stand as one in truth and right. From every shore we answer the call, Clan Jacobite, we rise or fall. I am you and you are me, a thread within this tapestry, for hopes of all, For every name we light the fire, we keep the flame. No sea can part us, nor the land. Together strong we proudly stand. With courage, truth, and spirits high, we pledge our oath beneath the sky. Oh, side by side through storm and fight, we stand as one in truth and right. Raise the banner, lift